Hey everybody, welcome back to Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. We're back. It's good to have you with us. It's good to be had, and of course with us again as always, Marco Chiappetta from Hot Hardware. How you doing there, Marco?
What's going on, everybody? I am doing well. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Long week of travel for you. Jason's here. Jason Evangelo. I always
There you
put
go.
the
There you
emphasis
go.
on the wrong symbol.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. EV Angel Ho, I've heard that one too. So
So it's not even Jello.
no, it's not even Jello. It's
Not even.
Angelo. Fun fact: it would be without the H, it would be Italian.
Very
So
cool.
and feel free to make the Chiappetta or Marco Polo jokes. I've been getting them since.
All
That's all right. I can't count the number of times they get called Altavilla, Altavia.
Alta
We have to
Vista.
screw each other's names up. It's just part of the deal.
Alta Vista.
So, Jason, I would turn up, just if you have the ability, just real quick, I would turn up your microphone just a touch. You sound soft.
Yeah, I can
You're
do that.
a soft-hearted guy, anyways.
I can do that.
There you go.
But
That's
talk
a little
amongst
better, I think,
yourselves,
already.
and I'll bump it up a little bit.
Cool. So, we've been busy around these parts, huh, gentlemen? We got
Oh my gosh.
Yes, sir.
Launch
lots going
season.
on.
Launch season is fully underway.
Yeah. We're quickly kicking into the holiday season of launch of new product and new gizmos and gadgets and tech for consumers, and so keeps folks like us busy, and that's a good thing. That's a dang good thing. Marco was out in San Francisco this week, one of my favorite cities. I love that town. And you were at IDF, Intel Developers Forum, right? And saw all kinds of sights and sounds and tech.
I did. I saw tons of cool stuff. It was an interesting IDF because, as any regular readers know, a few weeks ago, we already talked about the Intel Core i7-6700K Skylake-based desktop processor. Skylake is Intel's latest latest CPU architecture that's going to scale all the way down from low-power devices all the way up to servers eventually. Details on the 6700K were already released. We have a full review. Come check it out. We have a ton of benchmarks. But Intel didn't really talk architecture much. They just talked product and allowed us to do some testing. So at IDF, I got more details on architecture. There is a few articles I have posted. The Skylake architecture preview kind of outlines some of the changes within the chip. Now, it's still very much a core microarchitecture that borrows heavily from Haswell and Ivy Bridge and Sandy Bridge before it, but Intel has been working on Skylake for 5 years according to their architects. Now, I'm going to boil it down to some of the simplest changes. First, the GPU is now DX12.1 compliant. So DX12.1 GPU in that CPU. So that means when games for DX12 are released that have multi-GPU support, that core can actually be used along with your discrete card. I'm hearing some game developers might run their physics thread or AI through an integrated GPU and keep the discrete GPU for graphics and the heavy lifting. But the CPU cores themselves have also been updated. So just quickly, I'm going to run down some of the highlights. The out-of-order window has been increased on Skylake. In-flight workloads are the same as Haswell, but up from Sandy Bridge. There's more in-flight stores. There's way more scheduler entries. The integer register file is up to 180 versus 168 in Haswell, and the allocation queue is up to 64 threads. So what all that means is Skylake can have more processes in flight at any given time than previous gen CPUs. Now, another new feature is going to require some tweaks at the operating system level, but let me just get the name right. Hold on a second. I think I have I keep saying speed step, but that's not what it is. Hold on. That's the EDRAM cache. That's imaging. That's chipset. Of course, I'm on the wrong page. Give me one more second here. Hold on. It's here.
Speed shift, bro.
Speed shift. So speed shift is really cool. Right now, on most systems, the OS is basically in charge of managing peace states. So when your CPU goes down to a low power mode and has to come back up based on workload, the operating system handles that. And the time it takes to cycle out of peace states is roughly 30 milliseconds on most of today's architectures. With Skylake, however, Intel has brought all that functionality right into the hardware. So Skylake can switch in 1 millisecond. So that's how they're able to kind of go to top speed, get a workload done, and come back down to idle faster, and ultimately will save power, and reduce heat output. That change, though, again requires some OS tweaking, and I'm hearing Windows 10 first, but other operating systems like Linux as well are going to be updated for that. So that was pretty cool stuff. What do you guys think of Skylake so far from what you've seen?
So the speed shift, yes, that's what they call it. It's a more fine-grained, hardware-supported version of what was the acronym they gave years ago? HUGGY, hurry up and get idle, right?
Yep. So it is. It's more fine-grained and faster. There are additional domains that, well, as part of speed step, where parts of the chip clock down and get shut off, there are additional domains now as well to further save power, more fine-grained speed step controls as well. So it's kind of like, oh, and the other thing that this is actually a big deal, and I sort of noticed it in some of my testing in the Sandra tests where I tested cache bandwidth. The fabric on the chip the bandwidth has basically been doubled. So cache misses have a much smaller impact on performance. So it's basically the whole chip has been updated. Prefetcher's better. The scheduler is more efficient. Like lots of different changes inside Skylake. Now, in our testing on Windows 8.1, when the chip came out, it showed incremental improvements, not this monumental big shift. So Intel, even though there are these big changes that should result in better performance, more efficiency, it wasn't a huge step forward, but it's the kind of chip, and based on what I've learned at IDF and speaking with the architects, over time, as Windows 10 and other OSs are updated, we might see bigger benefits from Skylake than we see today.
Huh. So there's untapped potential based on taking advantage of the architecture better in the OS.
Yes.
I would imagine this has to have some benefits on the notebook side as well, right? I know they haven't really revealed much about the notebook SKUs, but I mean, do you think we'll finally see notebooks besides just the XPS 13 and the MacBook Air that have all-day battery life? Will that become common finally?
So I'm under embargo on the mobile stuff, but
if you had to speculate.
So just knowing what we know about Skylake and about efficiency, with certain workloads that today kind of whack the CPU, yes, you're going to see way better battery life with Skylake. In general, on typical workloads that are already fairly well optimized, there will also be some improvements. I can't. You know what? I don't want to make a mistake and break embrake.
That's fine. I didn't mean to intentionally put you in that spot.
Well, there will be very low power Skylake SKUs. Let's put it that way. I think everyone's going to be surprised how wide Skylake scales. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. Nice.
I think that makes sense. The other thing that I think folks are wondering is, okay, we're seeing quad cores now. When are we going to get 6 and 8 cores in the high-end side of things as well?
Right.
I don't know if you've got any resolution on that. You probably can't talk about that either, Marco. But I think Skylake could scale really well with more cores.
So it wasn't mentioned specifically, so no specific embargo in place on Skylake E. Do you know Skylake E will not come till next year, so it will be 2016. The other kind of scuttlebutt rumor mill kind of thing is, depending on how nice AMD's Zen CPUs work out, Intel could scale existing Skylake with more cores. It's not a huge. I mean, it's a new chip, but if Intel wanted to make a 6-core Skylake for socket 1151, it's apparently doable. So we'll see.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And what's that, Jason?
I just said good stuff. I love living in the future. Feels like we are.
It's nice to see the new architecture. What did we see in terms of performance? And we won't stay too much longer on Skylake, but what did we see in terms of performance boost? I'm trying to think back to our 6700 K article. Is it 8 to 10% on average, sort of clock per clock?
Yeah, 8 to 10% if you're factoring the total platform. Memory bandwidth limited situations, DDR4 has more memory bandwidth. The integrated GPU is 30 to 40% faster than this HD 6000 series in the higher end Haswells. There's so much more to talk about, and I don't want to break embargo, but there will be. There's going to be more to talk about in a couple of weeks. Around the IFA timeframe, come back to Hot Hardware.
There you go. Nice. There you go. Got to be careful, you know.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. It was really Intel did something really confusing with this launch because we've already had parts, and then we had a deep dive briefing under embargo. But anything gleaned from a session at IDF, we were allowed to write about, which is how I was able to put that architecture preview up. But I'm not. I don't want to step on any toes.
So you have to isolate those two things in your head.
It was weird. It was like, and I don't want to make a mistake, but you know, we did see lots of other cool stuff too at IDF. The GPU architecture kind of leaked as well. We have an article up that Paul wrote on that if you'd like to learn more about Skylake's DX12-1 GPU. I have some awesome pictures of some beautiful modded rigs that were out at IDF. Intel was talking a lot about overclocking because Skylake is more flexible in terms of overclocking than previous gen chips, so some beautiful modded rigs that were up all over the place getting overclocked. They broke a record on stage with liquid nitrogen, and I put in a beautifully clickbait annoying headline for that article that annoyed many people, I'm sure, but I was just having some fun. So if you want to see what a 5.81 gigahertz Skylake can do, we have some information on that. Just lots of good information out of Intel this idea.
Yeah. He pours liquid nitrogen on a Skylake processor, and what happens next is astonishing.
You know what I was thinking? I should have said, "What happens next will bring a tear to your eye." Is what I should.
What happens next will blow your mind.
Hey, we're not trying to pimp the belly fat, solutions and get ripped and all that. So at least we're geeks about our clickbait.
Though I do know how to do that now. So.
Yes, he does know how to get ripped, Marco over there. So hey, let's kick on to mobile. And actually, Marco, you've been a traveling man lately. This wasn't such a big trip for you to get to New York, but Samsung had their Unpacked event in New York just before you headed out to California to IDF, and the Samsung Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge, Edge Plus, were announced, as well as the Note 5. These are larger versions of their predecessors, the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus, a 5.7-inch version of the Galaxy S6 Edge, and the Note 5, obviously the follow-on to the Note 4. Both of them 5.7-inch devices, and lo and behold, we just got them in. So we're going to be working on that. Man, that screen is bright. Look at it, it's just like washing.
That's the Edge, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the Edge. I'm going to turn off the screen so you can see it a little bit better. 5.7-inch. It looks like it's a metallic gold color. I forget what color they'd call it. It's gold.
It's beautiful.
Nice phone.
I think they call that color Geek Lust.
Geek Lust Gold. Yeah. And so that's the Edge. This is the Note 5 right here, and as you can see, the little pen in the bottom, of course. Trying to get these up to the camera. Woo! And yeah, so great stuff. Really bright Super AMOLED screens. 5.7 inches. Other enhancements, 4 gig of RAM now on these models versus the previous gen 3 gig of RAM. Same Snapdragon 810. Is that right?
No, it's
no. Exynos. Right? Yeah. What's the processor? Octal Exynos.
I forget the model, but it's Samsung, the same 8-core Exynos that's in the original S6 and S6 Edge.
Right. So
but there is 4 gigs of RAM now.
Yeah, 4 gigs of RAM. There was also an enhanced camera algorithm now to allow for, what was the hook on that, Marco? I'm trying to think.
Live streaming to YouTube.
Well, you've got that, but there was also something to do with, I have to look it up now. Shame on me for this. But there's also an algorithm to tweak image quality in the capture side for stills.
I don't
Looking
remember,
it up.
but I'm sure they're always working on the camera software to increase output. I don't remember that specific tweak, and my brain is fried from 4 days in San Fran.
Yeah. Okay, so it has to do with optical image stabilization. So there's an additional digital image stabilization algo that complements the optical solution for further smoothing out video as well. So they took the video engine and buffed that up a little bit. So really what you're getting now is, you know, a larger version of the Edge, which is great because I love the Edge and the S6. S6 standard and the S6 Edge. I've always liked a bigger phone. This is 5.7 inches. It's kind of the sweet spot for me. 5.5 to 5.7 inches feels just big enough, but not too big that, you know, I'm clunking around with it in my pocket and it's.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Is that a Nexus 6 in your pocket? Are you happy to see me? No, this is 5.7, so it keeps that profile down and a little bit more. And then the nice thing about the Edge, because obviously the beveled edges on each side, really trims it down in the hand and trims it down in the pocket as well. You don't get, you know, sort of that bulge of the sharp edges that actually the Note. Let's see, the Note 5, let's take a look at that too. The Note 5 even has a little bit of a bevel on the back. So it's more square and flush on the front, but on the back, it's hard to see, but it's got a little bit of a bevel back here like the Edge. So that the screen is square, unlike the Edge, but beveled in the back. So again, they did a really nice job, very premium feel in the hand, all glass construction, just super, super nice. And Samsung's displays, in my opinion, are the best in the business. The Super AMOLED technology from Samsung is fantastic. So we have to dig into these. It's going to be interesting to see what an additional gig of RAM does for you. I don't think we're going to see major league benchmark improvements, you know, in the standard metrics. I think what this offers is a lot better ability to multitask. You might see a little bit better responsiveness on certain screen draw calls, you know, when you've got, you know, a super high resolution image or maybe high def video, it might be a little bit more responsiveness. Anything that consumes a memory footprint. I don't think you're going to see, you know, any sort of major advancement in terms of processing throughput. But what do you guys think? I really like the 5.7-inch form factor. The footprint is perfect. It's just big enough for me and not too big. The 5 to 5.25 inch of the I think the S6 is a 5.1 or a 5.2 inch phone. It's just a little too small. I really like 5.7. 6 inches is too big. It's like gangly in the hand. What do you guys think?
I'm sorry.
You're setting me up for so many. I gotta keep my mouth shut. So,
knock it down, baby. I set you up. You knock it down.
So I think 5.7 is probably the sweet spot too. I carry around a Nokia Lumia 1520. I'm a Windows Phone user, and it's a 6-inch display. It's a touch too big. Yeah. I like my phones big. I like having all that real estate. Sticking it in your pocket, it's noticeably, you know, there when it's in your pocket, and put it that way.
Yes.
Luckily for me, I'm a big guy, so like I can get away with it, but I could totally see, you know, women or smaller guys not being able to pull off a phone that big in their pocket. You would need a case or carry it around separately.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Jason? What's your preference for size?
I don't have much of opinion, but I've got a Samsung Galaxy S5. It's fine. I don't know. Like, I don't need the extra real estate because I don't travel as much. I work from home, and it, you know, so I'm kind of a different use case. But I'm actually thinking of switching to Windows Phone 10, in the very near future. I don't know. Windows 10's been really attractive. I've got the Office software on all of my systems, and I just finally want to be inside of just one ecosystem. So not to derail the conversation, but that's just where I stand on it.
No, I have an opinion on that. So I did switch. I switched for a while to one of the early betas, and unfortunately, it broke so much of what I liked about Windows Phone 8.1. I had to go back. Now I'm hearing the latest builds now that, you know, I guess the desktop OS, the focus is sort of slowed, and they're really focused on mobile right now. That the latest builds are are there. They can be daily drivers. I haven't switched yet because, you know, I was traveling and I needed everything working right, but I'm probably going to do it this week to play around, and I mean, I'll let you guys know next
Cool.
month.
Yeah, let us know. One thing that keeps coming into my radar is I keep hearing people saying that my Windows phone improves with each new update. Meanwhile, my iPhone or my Android phone seems to have degrading performance as time goes by.
Yeah, so that's what's kept me on Windows Phone is, so in the beginning when I first tried it, it wasn't there. The apps weren't there that I needed. It just, you know, it kind of felt like a work in progress. The latest builds of 8.1, actually, well, I've been carrying this phone for like a year and a half now, I think. There's still a big app gap, but all of the major apps that you want are there, and even some of the games, you know, that are popular are there. Mm-hmm. And the OS is just so fast and fluid and smooth and buttery, even on an older device. If I were to go grab, I don't want to single out any other Android manufacturers, but if I grab a different Android phone right now, even a high-end phone pre S6, because I don't have an S6 on hand or a Note 5 on hand, but from that same generation as my Lumia 1520, there's no comparison in the feel and the fluidity when you're working through the OS. The Windows Phone is just faster, and I got so used to that speed that I feel like everything else is slow, even though it's not. It just feels that way versus Windows Phone.
There's no question. There's something about the Windows Phone OS that you know, whether it's, you know, the live tiles and all that interface that, you know, we hate it on the desktop, but love works very well on mobile devices.
Indeed.
It seems like, you know, faster access, you know, quicker access to your apps. I will say that I've been on the Android platform for a long time now, and I really love it. I actually prefer, believe it or not, and a lot of folks will like hit me over the head for this, I prefer Samsung's TouchWiz skin. I actually like what it does for the Android experience. Pure Android, you know, Lollipop, what have you, doesn't really do much for me. It's a little too drab. It's a little too plain. It doesn't have quite the contrast I like, and it seems like getting to certain functions that are a little bit deeper take a couple more clicks than I'd like. But I really like what Samsung does. AT&T lately has been getting better with getting me updates at the OS level, and I haven't felt my like I run an S6 now. I had an S5 before. I haven't felt, you know, that performance bleed that has been talked about. But I hear people that do. It's one of those things where, yeah, I need to give Windows Phone a try and see perhaps what I'm missing. Perhaps it's matured. Last time I checked it, my wife's got a Windows Phone. It just doesn't impress me, but the interface is super trim. It's nice, no question about it.
Yeah, cool.
So, speaking of Windows, let's move on in that vein. Let's stay in the Windows vein. We've got a couple of articles up at HotHardware where we're talking about Windows 10. We're really digging the OS, by the way, certainly for the desktop. It is quickly moving to all of our platforms for testing, right, guys? For various hardware. And so we did two pieces, Windows 8 versus Windows 10 gaming performance, and then we took a look at DX12, the first DX12 benchmark called Ashes of Singularity. Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we know and love now about Windows 10 and gaming?
Well, I mean, I don't want to jump straight to the punchline, but I would say that we love exactly what we loved about it in 8.1 because there's really very little performance difference. I mean, maybe there's a couple frames here and there, but all in all, we're seeing almost identical gaming performance between Windows 8.1 and Windows 10. And I've also done some testing on identical notebooks and have seen the same thing. So there's some software advantages. There's the Xbox app, which is kind of carries over from the Xbox One that allows gamers to take screenshots and record video of their gameplay on demand. But I have to assume that if people are gaming on a PC, they already have probably an AMD card or an Nvidia card, and those companies both offer fairly elegant solutions for capturing gameplay. So there's not a lot of benefit on the gaming level. The OS is outstanding, but on the gaming level, there's no real reason to jump. Like if that's what you're waiting for, um, is extra gaming performance. It's not a real compelling reason to jump over until we start getting an influx of DirectX 12 games.
Yeah. So the reason to jump, I think that everybody would agree with, is the enhancements in the UI that Microsoft brought to the table. Obviously,
Absolutely.
the outcry with Windows 8 and the Metro UI that's forced upon you, and then the return back to the enabled desktop mode with some live tile feature, built in the start menu and all the different features. Windows 10's been a very nice migration in that regard. So the good news is, what's interesting, actually, I think, and you touched on this, is that you're getting a couple frames here and there of extra performance, but nothing notable, nothing tangible, certainly to the user in the benchmarks. We see it.
Nothing
but when you're gaming,
is going to detect now.
Yeah, but that's actually good. See, I see that as like, okay, Windows 10 is fresh off the block here, and a lot of times from Microsoft, when a new OS iteration came out, you'd see a little bit of a dip until they optimize. Guys had their drivers optimized and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I shouldn't dismiss so easily is the fact that. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something, Marco?
Oh no, I didn't say anything.
Okay. I'm hearing voices in my head again. Is the fact that we have Xbox to PC streaming. So being able to actually sit in my office and power on my Xbox One and maybe play something at 1080p, 60 frames per second, given if you have a good network connection, while my wife's watching something on Food Network is a pretty big bonus for a certain group of people, I would imagine. I don't know how widespread that feature appeals to, but it's a nice little perk.
I haven't tried that out. You've tried that? Have you played with it extensively?
I've tried it, and you need a solid network connection. But I actually tried it with I've got a wireless AC network in the house, and I've got my Xbox One plugged in, hardwired, and I'm just on wireless on my Office desktop, and I noticed just a touch of latency, and just a slightly diminished overall quality compared to the source on the Xbox One. A little bit of blurry and blurriness and artifacting, but it was very close to playing it on your actual console if you have the right network environment. It's very well done.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I'd like to check that out. I haven't done that yet, and I'd like to see how it reacts over a wireless connection. It's not always easy to have Ethernet at the ready, but yeah, that is a very cool feature, and perhaps worthy of the upgrade if you're a gamer as well. DirectX 12, we see a noticeable jump in performance for DirectX 12 enabled app with the optimization of draw calls. You took a look at the first benchmark, which is actually based on a real game engine called Ashes of Singularity. What were your impressions there at the gaming level for DX12?
And that's something that AMD and Oxide are really touting right now, and I'll get to why AMD is touting it in a second. But Oxide is saying this isn't a synthetic benchmark like 3D Mark or Heaven. This is an actual in-game benchmark that has actual AI routines going and a little bit of variance between runs, and they say that it's going to be somewhat representative of DirectX 12 performance. I don't know whether or not that's true, but based on this very early benchmark, which is just one benchmark with one game engine, and the game is still in alpha state, so it's very hard to jump to conclusions right now. But what we're seeing is really interesting. So, for example, the scaling between DirectX 11 and DirectX 12 is really what people want to know about. They want to know, if I'm running a game in DirectX 12, how much of a performance boost am I going to see with my existing hardware? And under certain tests, I ran the GTX 980, and I saw a improvement in the lower quality settings of 9%, and oddly enough, a decrease of 12% going to DirectX 12, which is very odd. Meanwhile, running that same pair of tests on the Radeon 390X, almost an 80% performance gain on low settings between DirectX 11 and DirectX 12. And in general, what this benchmark points out definitively, in my opinion, is that NVIDIA's DirectX 11 drivers are vastly superior to AMD's. You know, we see a lot lower results in the DirectX 11 tests for AMD, but then we're seeing stuff like the 390X matching the 980 Ti, which just shouldn't be happening at 1440p and at 4K under some fairly demanding tests. So I think that, I don't know, there's a lot of conclusions that we can kind of come up with. I don't know if any are the right ones, but I feel like AMD has been playing a very long game over the past few years, and I feel like, I don't think it's up for debate that their resources have been a little bit trimmed down in the last couple of years, and I feel like they've been really focusing all their attention on their new, the Fiji architecture, Mantle and DirectX 12, and really playing the long game so that they can win the DX 12 battle, and maybe sacrificing the DX 11 battle a little bit. For NVIDIA's part, they came out and they said, well, there's an MSAA bug in this test, and it renders any of the tests you're running under the presets invalid or inaccurate. And then Oxide said, well, no, that's not a bug on our end. That's a problem with NVIDIA's DirectX 12 drivers. So we're already seeing the infighting and the feuding over DirectX 12, and we don't even have a game that's launched at retail yet. It's really fascinating.
Interesting.
Did you guys have any takeaways from it?
What's that?
Did you guys have any takeaways from what you read?
I saw the back and forth, obviously, with respect to NVIDIA's performance on it. I think it's, and I want to put that caveat out there. When you're talking about one data point, one test for DirectX 12, our first game engine, our first benchmark, you have to be very careful to take that with a grain of salt. It is one data point, one benchmark, one reference yardstick, And one thing that we do at HotHardware and any serious tech publication, you need to give a full representative view of performance from a number of different angles. Whether it be the synthetic benchmarks, a bunch of different types of tests. Everybody knows, certain tests lean towards Team Red in terms of performance and, taking advantage of their architecture. Another test or game might lean towards NVIDIA, Team Green, and it's just the way it is. There's subtle variances, so you really want to have 6, 8 different reference points when you're talking about benchmarking. So this is one in DX12.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good to have it. But
two other quick things too is number one, this is a game that AMD has been using at press events, and so there's definitely kind of a partnership between Oxide and AMD. So it doesn't surprise me to see that AMD has the advantage here. And the second thing is that, I saw testing other GeForce cards. I saw a lot of improvement between DirectX 11 and DirectX 12. So you can't read this and read about these results and come to the conclusion that, well, Radeon is the best for DX12, because we're not even close to being able to even have an inkling of of how that's going to shake out yet.
Yeah.
Promising though. It's either way, like no matter what hardware you have, DirectX 12 is super promising at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and you can be darn sure that NVIDIA, a company that has staked the cornerstone of their revenue on GPU architecture, is going to fix the DirectX 12 problem, if there is one. But it looks like, at least maybe, that it's just with this game, right?
And most notably, a company that has 82% of the desktop market share right now is not going to forsake all those people.
Yeah. So I don't think we have to worry about that anytime soon. Let's stay on the graphics kick a little bit longer here. And Marco, you took a look at a new product offering from Nvidia, the GeForce GTX 950 for $159, new mainstream card. What'd you think?
I liked it. Before I dive into it, let me show it. This is one of the cards I looked at. This is
the Strix.
Asus Strix GTX 950. So
Sexy.
that's the size right there. Let me put it next to my head. Not huge. So before I dive in, though, I need to shout out to Will Hotchkiss, who's commenting on our live stream. He said, "Please welcome him." So welcome, Will. And
Welcome, Will.
another commenter said he feels limited with Windows Phone. So his name is Gate95. Gate, if you're still watching, comment what you feel limited about, and I'll see if I can answer you. But to talk about the GTX 95, so it's a new card from Nvidia, but not a new GPU. The GTX 950 is using the same GM206 GPU that's on the GTX 960, but 2 of the SMs have been disabled. So on the GTX 950, you have 2 graphics processing clusters and 6 streaming multiprocessors, not 8 like there is in the GTX 960. So that equates to 768 CUDA cores active on the GPU with 48 textured units and 32 ROPs. The base clock of a reference card is 1024 megahertz with a boost of 1188, but both cards that we received, and virtually like 85% of the cards that are going to hit retail are factory overclocked. So both the Asus Strix and EVGA cards that we looked at are between 15 and 18% overclocked. You got 2 gigs of RAM on these cards, 2 gigs of GDDR5 clocked at an effective data rate of 6.6 gigabits per second, and you're talking a really low power card, relatively speaking, for discrete. 90-watt TDP. They only require a single power connector. So the Asus card has only a 6-pin connector. EVGA threw an 8-pin connectors on their card in case you want some additional headroom for some extreme overclocking. Now, in terms of performance, it kind of lands exactly where you'd expect. It's a notch behind cards like the GTX 960 or Radeon R9 285, which I think that 285 is equivalent to an R9 380. I might be getting that wrong, but it's in that range. And a notch above cards like the 270X or 370 and older previous gen NVIDIA GPUs in this class. So NVIDIA was positioning this card as a good upgrade for GTX 650 owners that got their card, say, 2-3 years ago. And it's true, it's significantly faster. I threw a GTX 650 Ti boost into the tests just to show the kind of gains, and you're talking big jumps in performance. It's basically playable with most titles at 1080p. But NVIDIA also is introducing some new software with the GTX 950, some software tweaks. Now, these tweaks are going to come to other cards eventually, but because cards like this, mainstream cards like the GTX 950, are really favorites for MOBA players, guys that play Dota 2, League of Legends, NVIDIA has incorporated some tweaks into the driver and with their GeForce Experience software that are aimed at lowering latency. So they're tweaking the number of pre-rendered frames that are getting rendered in the pipeline before being output to the display, and we have a short video in the article that shows what that does. It basically means when you click and you try to do something in the game, from the time you click to when something happens on your screen is faster on a card like this versus a previous gen card. Now, some of those latency, well, a lot of those latency benefits come because the GPU is simply faster, but it's one more area where NVIDIA can tweak their GeForce Experience optimizations for specific game types, and I like the direction they're going with GFE.
So for $159, you can game on pretty much any cutting-edge, leading AAA game title at 1080p with high-quality settings. Is that a fair assessment?
Mostly, maybe not the top setting. So every game I tested was, above 30 frames per second at 1080p. I'm sure we can bring that down if we crank up some of the settings in like a game like Metro Last Light or whatever. But generally speaking, if you have a card like this and you buy a game today, it's going to play well. Worst case scenario, you crank down a couple settings.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
Go ahead,
Jay.
I know you didn't have a chance to test it head-to-head against the 750 Ti.
Yep.
But if I recall correctly, the 750 Ti launched at the same price point. Yep. Do you have any impressions or idea of how they can compare head-to-head from NVIDIA or anyone else?
Yeah, so I plan to have 750 Ti in the test routine, and I think, and I might be wrong, back in the day, I'm pretty sure I sent my 750 Ti to another writer, and I realized I never got it back.
Oh.
So, but it should fall somewhere if you look where 650 Ti boosts, I didn't test the regular Ti. It was the boost. It was the fastest 650 Ti. The 750 Ti should fall somewhere in between those numbers. So it's faster across the board than 750 Ti, but obviously the delta is going to be smaller than 650.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Now, you remember back in the day, I mean, at some point, when these two GPU powerhouses, AMD and Nvidia, came out and said, we're making this killer graphics card and it costs $499. But there was a time a while ago when the average graphics card, was $200. And these days, to get top-end performance, you got to spend $500-$600. And it's refreshing to have these guys still focusing on the, really, I don't even want to call it the low end. It's really kind of entry level. Hey, if you've got a 23-inch monitor with 1080 res, you can play pretty much anything really well with it, and that's nice to have. I mean, I don't know.
Honestly,
so these graphics cards just get out of hand.
They're appealing to the majority.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, I'm looking for.
So while you're looking,
hardware survey, but go ahead.
One more quick feature that this has versus the 650 Ti and 750, SLI support. The older mainstream cards didn't have SLI. These do. So
nice.
If you want to pair two of them, you can. So that's another thing that these cards have going for them. Plus full Maxwell, so all the cool benefits of Maxwell.
Did you find your Steam data, Jason?
I did, but it's not the right data that I'm looking for.
I know what you're looking for. I'll find it while you're talking.
Yeah, there's a specific number, but I know that the majority, Nvidia and Nvidia normally says the majority of gamers are on something like a 660 right now, like basically an under $200 card is what the majority of gamers are playing on. And so if they launch a product at 159 and it's going to play 1080p at reasonably high settings, 30 FPS or higher, they're going to make some bank on that.
Yeah. And the competitive AMD SKU would be like a 270, 285?
270, yeah, 272. Well,
370.
Yeah, 370.
Yeah, for the current gen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do they stack up, Marco, comparatively, bang for the buck versus AMD's stuff?
So it's good. It's good if you stay laser focused. Well, it's good no matter what, but if you stay laser focused in its segment, right? It's competitive versus 270X and 370, and obviously it's a better choice than a previous gen 650 Ti or 750. If you spend a little bit more money, $20-$30, maybe $40, you can step. And I know that we're talking. If you talk percentages, you're talking 15% higher than its asking price, so it's not trivial. But that that $40 can get you a card like a 285 or a 960, and it's worth it for the additional performance to jump up to those cards. If you don't have that money, if you're on a strict budget and you have to buy a $160, $170 card, great choice though.
There you go.
Awesome.
So let's we'll move on. Keep moving along here. We'll click back into the mobile space real quick. I took a look at a new tablet from Asus, and it was the ZenPad S8. I just actually got it in real quick, shot some video with it, and then shipped it off to Paul Lilly, who will be doing the full review for us. Stop by HotHardware in the next couple of weeks. We'll have the full review. But very interesting product, and another refreshingly affordable product where tablets these days can go all the way up to $500, $600, $700, and now you're talking about a device that weighs right in there with a notebook. So why not a notebook? Well, obviously, if you want a tablet, you want something decidedly more portable. That's one reason. But it's nice to have some offerings down in the $299 price point. I think that's again the sweet spot of the market where most folks would rather spend their dollar. That's an affordable price point. And Asus has done a really nice job of bringing some otherwise rather premium features in a tablet for $299 that you wouldn't get, perhaps from the others. Actually, a comparative tablet would be the Dell Venue 8 7000, and there's probably a couple others out there that I can think of that are about $100 more. Well, actually, if you went for an iPad Mini 3, a Mini 3 is $400, $399 for its base. But here, and I'll share this out. Let me get this up on screen for everybody. Here you're looking at the Asus ZenPad S8. This is the Z580CA. Lots of numbers and letters there. Doesn't just roll off the tongue. This is an 8-inch slate, 7.9-inch QXGA display, 2048 by 1536 res. Okay,
Wow.
this is a 2K display and a $299 tablet. IPS display. Also enabled with Asus True to Life Plus image processing. Basically, what it does is it senses at the pixel or at the basically adjusts at the pixel level and senses light and adjusts contrast and sharpness based on your conditions, and so presenting the optimal image that way, but down to the pixel level. And super thin. It's like 0.3 inches thick. And there's some benchmarks. Let's just scroll down here a little bit. You can take a look at it. Really nice brushed aluminum backside that absolutely resists fingerprints. I mean, you can't put a fingerprint on it, which just is refreshing as well, because every time you pick up one of these devices, it feels like we're always mucking it up. So the backside fingerprint-free, virtually. That's not a real good shot there. You can't quite see the texture, but it's a dark brushed aluminum finish. And then the bottom, along the bottom there, you can see there's like a rubberized sort of leather textured skid pad. It actually makes it easy to hold, and it keeps it from sliding around on a tabletop. Micro SD card slot back there, front-facing 5-megapixel camera, rear-facing 8-megapixel camera, and powered by an Intel 64-bit Intel quad-core Atom Z3580 processor.
That's
now,
interesting.
skipping through to the benchmarks here, you can see it's middle of the pack. Okay, it's a quad-core Atom chip with PowerVR, I want to say 6430 or something like that, graphics engine. Ends up scoring middle of the pack from what we're seeing on basic graphic tests like GFX Bench 3, the T-Rex test we use quite a bit, 32 frames per second there versus something like an Nvidia Shield tablet, which is like the Hercules of tablets at 65 frames a second. But good, solid, competitive performance. Maybe a notch behind an iPad Air 2 for sure in graphics and gaming, but capable pretty much of whatever you'd throw at an 8-inch slate. And for $299, I can't say enough about it. It's the price point that impresses me. The build quality's solid. It's an Android slate. So it's cost effective in that ecosystem as well. Just really impressed with it. We're going to take a look and give it the full review treatment in the next couple of weeks. What do you guys think? $299 tablets the way to go, or our premium, higher end premium 10-inch slates where it's at?
So I got a chance to play with that tablet at IDF, and I was actually impressed with the screen and the thinness and the weight and the build for that price. I don't know, like I carry a big phone, so I use the tablet very little, but I think 8-inch is what I like. Like the Shield tablet is my favorite tablet because it's easy to stash anywhere. It's big enough where it is an upgrade over the phone. So I think 8-inch is good.
Jason,
Yeah,
you have a preference? Are you a tablet guy at all?
I actually lean toward the 8-inch form factor as well. If I'm going anything beyond that, I've got my MacBook or another laptop laying around, and I don't know. Usually results in slightly better battery life. It's more portable. I was rocking a Nexus 7 for a long time, and I loved that little tablet.
Yeah.
So was it Nexus 7? Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first Google tablets.
Yep.
Yeah, I prefer anything over that. Anything over 8 inches is just a little bit too much for me.
With
tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Qualify that, man.
Closing the door on that.
Yeah, no, I tend to be a 10-inch tablet guy. I tend to you'll see me on a tablet in bed a lot. I'll be flipping around in bed. That's where I tend to use them more, or sitting on the couch a little bit. I tend to flip up my my notebook when I'm on the couch watching the football game or something like that. So yeah, and as a result, I sort of like a little bit larger screen. But this is a really nice, form factor as well, because it's an 8-inch screen, but it's 4:3. The format is a little bit wider. It's sort of a wider portrait mode, if you will, and so 2048 by 1536 is the res. I don't know if that's 4:3. I think that's 4:3 aspect. Marco, am I right there? You always know that stuff.
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, it's actually a really nice offering. Let me share it out one more time. And again, stop by Hot Hardware in the next couple of weeks. We got a video review of it right now up on the site. You can hit this page, and we give you the walk around, we give you the demo, we go through all the hands-on stuff. But Paul Lilly's going to be doing the full review. Here's just a couple of benchmarks, and really digging into the fine details. Stop by, $299. Asus has got a winner on their hands, and they didn't even pay us to say it. So there. It's funny. We get that sometimes when you're too positive about something. People say, "Oh, did Asus pay you?" Yeah, right.
All the time. Yep. Sometimes products just deserve praise, and it's just a reality.
Yeah, I know. Heaven forbid something's actually pretty damn good,
I mean, I don't think that these companies intentionally release something god-awful,
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's an interesting topic, and then we'll move on. I think we're getting ready to close it up here, but, the site is called Hot Hardware, and so we don't really bring mediocre hardware in.
Good point.
Lukewarm
Sometimes it sneaks in.
What's that?
We're gonna have a lot of Hot Hardware in the next couple of weeks going up on the site. Damn.
Yep.
Yeah. There's some good stuff in the pipeline. Everybody's getting ready to queue up for the holiday season. Marco, we should be giving away some more gear soon, some free stuff. Free stuff's coming.
Yes.
We can talk about that, but we just got through giving away some free stuff too, right?
Yes, just to point out to previous viewers, or if you've been on the site, the winners of the NUC system and Intel Compute Stick have been announced. That post is up on the site. We actually did give it away, yay! And while I was at IDF, we're very close to announcing the next giveaway. We are going to work with one of the larger motherboard, notebook, graphics card companies. We're just hashing out the details. There will be multiple prizes. It's potentially going to be a whole gaming system. Maybe not. At the very least, it's going to be a nice core upgrade for somebody or for multiple users. So that's coming. Please come by the site and keep an eye out for that next giveaway. It will be soon, I promise, within the next couple of weeks. And before we move on, Gate95 in the comments on YouTube said what he doesn't like about Windows Phone is that there's no decent quality of apps versus Android and Apple, and he says the experience feels more like a tablet. Definitely has a point. What I will say as someone who's entrenched in the ecosystem, apps that were just sloppily ported from Android or iOS, they're definitely crappier on Windows Phone. But apps designed properly from a developer for Windows Phone are better on the platform. TeamViewer is an example. TeamViewer on my Windows Phone is fantastic for managing systems. The IMDb app, I'm kind of a nerd. I love to look up actors while I'm watching movies and find these weird connections. IMDb app is beautiful on Windows Phone.
You're kind of a nerd?
I'll say that again?
You're kind of a nerd?
I am a huge nerd in every respect. There's also things like even some games, the animation, even with the lower end hardware that's in a 1520, you're gonna laugh, but I have little kids, so there's a game called Nemo's Reef, right, where it's basically like Farmville for Nemo, and I maintain this reef on a Note 4 and on my Windows Phone, and it's way smooth. Like, you can't even compare how much smoother the animation is on the Windows Phone. It's night and day, even though the Note 4 has more powerful hardware. So there's trade-offs. I can't say Windows Phone's for everybody, but it's worth looking at. Don't dismiss it if you think it's because of the app gap. The app gap is much smaller.
Do you think? Do you think that app gap is going to close with as we start seeing more universal apps, Windows 10 universal apps?
I don't know. So on one hand, you're going to have this huge install base because the apps are going to work on every Windows 10 device. On the other hand, Microsoft had trouble getting developers for 8.1, and now you're basically telling them, go redo all your apps. So the developers that already made apps have more work, and then now they have to entice more to do stuff. So I don't know. There's huge potential. I don't know. I mean, Microsoft has a huge uphill battle. I don't think the gap will ever close. I mean, we're talking dozens of millions of apps difference, but the key stuff is there.
You know what's impressive about Windows, and what I think you're probably detecting with that comparison you made between that little fish tank app or whatever for your kids on the Windows phone versus the Android phone.
Yeah,
Windows has very good resource, thread management and memory management.
Yep.
And so it does a very good job of putting stuff to sleep when not using it, an app at the app level, and then waking it back up for when you want to use it. And so I think that's probably what you're sensing there. It's just, it's really good. That memory manager is pretty freaking fantastic, and that comes from the desktop world. So it's nice that you got to give Microsoft some credit. They get bashed a lot, certainly in the mobile space, because they're playing catch up by a long shot there. But no joke. I mean, they did stake their whole existence on operating systems, so they must know how to do something. So it's good stuff. Good stuff for sure. And to talk about that upcoming giveaway, Marco. By the way, and we'll close on this. We may have in our midst another guy who can build impeccable systems that so clean off the inside with cable routing that you can eat off them.
Thank you.
And we may be able to coax Jason into giving giveaway rig.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I have a few dozen AMD CPUs at my disposal at the moment. They're right over there.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that. So it's funny you mention that. We have to bring it. We have to bring this conversation offline. We got to bring this conversation offline because it's something that came up at IDF. But I have an article idea, and it would involve you, Jason. So we'll talk offline. But
sure.
We'll see how that goes.
Yes, I think that we can absolutely. I could probably build a couple kick-ass systems right now.
Very cool.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
Very cool. So stick around, folks. Stick with us. Check in at HotHardware.com. That's the place you'll find us most. But we're all around the web, of course. Facebook.com/HotHardware, Twitter.com/HotHardware, YouTube.com/HotHardwareVids, where we would appreciate it very much if you would subscribe and thumb up this video if you liked it. And let's see what else. Google Plus, of course, plus.google.com/HotHardware Plus or whatever. You can search for us.
No Instagram, Dave?
What's that?
No Instagram?
Yeah, no Instagram.
No? I was thinking like just Instagram. The Instagram account could just be tech porn, just like super close up, just luscious tech porn shots. I don't know.
Something about hardware geek porn is you're right. It deserves an Instagram. I got to work on that. Jason, you can be found on Twitter at KillYourFM. Is that right?
KillYourFM. Yes.
Where they can tweet
a Twitter handle I wish I didn't have anymore, but it's from another life, and it's short and easy to remember, so hey.
Yeah, we might as well finish killing off FM and just go with
podcasts, man. Podcasts are where it's at.
Yeah. And Marco, you're real simple on Twitter, right?
Yeah, it's tough to remember. It's at Marco Chiappetta. Same thing on Facebook, but my home is HotHardware, so find me there first.
Yeah, and I'm a HotHardware. I have a Dave Altavilla, but I never use it. But you can correspond with us always at HotHardware on Twitter. And thanks for joining us again this week. We'll check back when we have more stuff to talk about, and that won't be long because stuff's coming in. Thanks for stopping by.
Awesome. See ya.